Okay.
Just kidding.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I think we're ready to start our program highlight, which is item 4A, the EMS Interact Club.
Hey, we are very excited to have our Emporia Middle School. Mr. John Martin, principal of the Emporia Middle School, will introduce our guest tonight.
Well, the first guest that we have over here, and I'll have Mr. Hawley come up and introduce his students. Mr. Hawley is a longtime Emporia employee, one of the bright shining stars on our staff. Whenever I'm kind of having a rough day, which is very rare, but I can go down in Mr. Hawley's room, and just his interaction with our students, he approaches them with humor and love and caring, and that really breathes through in everything that he does. When we talked about highlights in the last 3 years for me, we talked a little bit when I first started about Stuco and what they have done. I think last year we talked a lot about AVID and what our AVID program has done, and it's almost tripled the number of kids and students that we have wanted to do that program. But this year, it just seemed like a logical thing to have Mr. Andy Hawley come up and talk about his Interact Club and how he does activities to engage our kids in our community. So at this time, Mr. Andy Hawley.
Hi, so we're actually going to talk to you guys about two things tonight. So the first is Interact Club, which is an after-school program that started about 15 years ago. It's pretty crazy on that tiny TV set. That was actually my very first year. We were doing a fundraiser for children's cancer, and so one of the students was like, hey, I can get us some free advertising, and I was like, okay. And so he got on the phone, and then he was like, all right, we're booked for like next Tuesday at 5:30 and 6 on the news. I was like, oh, okay. So we found out a way to get there, but she's actually an 8th grade teacher right now. So that's like how long the club has been around, so pretty crazy to think. But we are after school club, a service organization. We're sponsored by the Emporia Rotary Club, so we're Interact Club, which is like the student version of Rotary Club. And then obviously the Junior Spartan Extra, our after school program, also helps to support that with snacks and transportation and stuff. So I will let the interactors talk to you about that, and then a couple people that have been in my World Studies class talk about that. So first up, we got Lincoln.
Hello, my name is Lincoln Hawley, and each year we do at least 3 projects. The students get to pick the issue that they want to address, and they design a project and come up with the marketing to address those concerns. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
I'm Gus Osterhout, and I'm here to explain our first school project, which focuses on how to make Emporia Middle School a better place. And a few causes at EMS that Interact has supported are the following: anti-bullying, positive self-image, campus beautification, positive culture, and kindness.
I am Harry Hendrickson, and some community projects we do are not a few of the nonprofits in Emporia. The Interact Club has supported Kansas Children's Service League, Abundant Harvest, the Salvation Army, TFI, and SOS.
Hi. I'm Jalen Ortiz. Some of the global projects we've worked on are Popsicles Against Poverty, Missions of Popsicle, and a few others. The proceeds from those fundraisers went to Heifer International, the Water Project, UNICEF, vaccines, refugees, and deforestation.
Now we're transitioning to World Studies, so there we go.
Hello, I am Sandy Salguero. So I was in World Studies with Mr. Hawley. I'm currently a 9th grader in high school, but World Studies was a blended social studies / ELA class. We met up twice each day, so obviously in the morning, then afternoon. And basically, it was a project-based class where we were trying to focus on learning by doing. So we always had these different kind of things that we had to do during class, which was obviously more projects than actual basic assignments every day.
Hello, my name is Lucia Hernandez. How is World Studies beneficial? We had time to extend themes from social studies, so along with normal lectures about different events, we were also able to read books about people our age so we could connect with them. We focused on writing, so we were able to write a lot of stories, and we uploaded them to our website called EMS Sound, which was really fun. We work on soft skills, so basically we were told what the projects were, and they were left to us to decide like how we wanted to do them. Like it was our own timeline. And we also had a strong sense of belonging. And when I was in World Studies, I had fun every day. I really enjoyed, with Mr. Hawley and my classmates, and I never dreaded it.
Just that, man, thank you guys so much for having a district where these opportunities are available. It's really been overwhelming. But I think Mr. Martin was asking me how long did the presentation take, and I was like, ooh, about 7.5 hours. It's the actual presentation itself went together like nothing, but looking over 15 years of pictures, all of the different things that we've done, and just when you see it all together, there's the tens of thousands of dollars that we've raised, and just the amount of kind things that I've seen from students. Every year we always give a presentation to the Rotary Club, and it seems like I always start the same, which is no matter what you've heard on the news, our future, it really is bright, because we have an amazing group of people that we're going to be adding to our community, and I'm really excited to, see the future of things. So thank you guys again for giving me the opportunity to teach World Studies and also have the Interact Club. So.
And Mr. Hawley is just way downplaying this. Our kids have great opportunities to go speak to a Rotary Club that wouldn't be there before. But a lot of times what I'll do, and I think his World Studies class does a very good job, is writing. They write, they rewrite. If you want to know what kids are thinking, when you go to talk to them, sometimes they're not very articulate in what they want to tell you, but they are good writers, and they spend some time, and you can get a lot of good opinions or ideas of what needs to be done, not necessarily by just talking directly to them, because they like time to reflect like we do, and you get a lot of good information from students in our student writing, and that's updated often. And so as soon as the kids do things, and it's great, and they talk about all sorts of topics, but having them think and then write it out has been tremendous. And then Mr. Hawley just downplays himself. He's a great teacher, great innovator, and just a great spokesperson for Emporia Schools.
Thank you. Yeah.
No questions. It was just awesome. No, I love
Yeah.
seeing kids involved in service projects, serving your community. Mr. Hawley, you're a rock star. Everybody knows it. Thank you for all you do. Yeah, and thanks for being here tonight, kids. We really, really appreciate it.
And I just wanted to say my son, who's a freshman in college, was one of the first students to take part in World Studies, and he loved it then, and he still talks about it. It gave him some really great foundation for later in life. So thank you, Mr. Hawley.
Of course. So that's the goal. So awesome. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, item 4B, recognition of National Teacher Appreciation Week. The board would like to recognize National Teacher Appreciation Week, which is May 5th through May 9th, 2025. This is a week when teachers get the extra credit they deserve. National Teachers Day will be celebrated on May 6th. The board would also like to thank Casey and all the other administrative professionals in our district for all the hard work you do every day. It is Administrative Professionals Day.
Thank you, guys.
Item 4C is public comment. Casey, is there a public comment this evening?
We do have Heather McKay signed up. Heather, if you'd like to come forward to the podium.
Okay, public comment will be allowed with a duration of 3 minutes per speaker to be timed by the board clerk, and speakers must sign up for in-person public comment by 1 p.m. the day of the board meeting. Public comment by email or remote is not accepted. Those giving public comment should not approach the board or move past the podium. No handouts will be allowed, but such materials may be emailed in advance to the board clerk for distribution to the board, and public comment may not include reference to names of specific students or personnel matters, which would potentially violate an individual's privacy. The board will not engage in discussion at that time except to gain clarification.
My name is Heather McKay. I'm sure many of you have heard my name, as I have been calling everyone trying to get help for a long time. I have gotten the same answer. I know these people, and they wouldn't do that. But I'll investigate and I'll call you back. Then I never get a call back. I'm just ignored. You say bullying is not happening in your school, but every day, every time it is reported by a parent or a student, your principals and teachers refuse to take it any further than that. No writing it down, even though it isn't your policies, and that a violation of the policy may be subjected to disciplinary action, up to and including suspension or expulsion. I am a mother who at first hand have witnessed my child, my husband, and I report to teachers and principals multiple times about the same students, and nothing is done. They are still allowed to go to the class with my son and keep on until they see my child as a problem because he no longer knows what to do. He has been made fun of for a suicide attempt, for his clothes, been called a cracker or white trash, which, according to one of your middle school principals, is not racism. But let's get to statistics real quick. Kids who are targeted for bullying on an ongoing basis often develop an overactive stress response. The brain chemistry causing the stress response can cause them to be more impulsive, aggressive, and permanently anxious. Victims will use anger and aggression as a self-defense tactic to protect themselves from fuller bullying. 75% of shootings have been linked to bullying and harassment. 22% of students have considered suicide. 10% have had suicide attempts. 90 into 100,000 youth suicides. 13.0% of kids that are being bullied become a bully. Bullying is a direct link to affecting a student's ability to learn. 58% of middle school students feel the school do not do enough to stop or prevent bullying. So why not do something about these bullies before the bullied kid becomes a bad kid in the school's eyes? I was told by one of your principals that they know certain kids get picked on, but it's easier to pull the bullied kid than to pull a bunch of kids. I'm sorry, but it's your job to protect them. It's your job to protect all kids while in your school, not just certain ones because it's easier. These bullied kids put up walls and go quiet after reporting and getting ignored. And then when they finally snap, it's all their fault. I am a mom of a teen who has reported and who has said something and then went quiet and violent because he could get no help.
Thank you. The next item is the consent agenda. The items listed on the consent agenda are considered by the Board of Education to be routine business items. Approval of the items may be made by a single motion, second, a majority vote with no separate discussion of any items listed. Should a member of the board desire to discuss any item at his or her request, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. What are the wishes of the board?
Second.
Okay. There has been a motion and a second. While you all are voting, I would like to thank everyone for their donations. We have quite a few donations on the consent agenda this evening, so thank you to our generous community. Jamie didn't get it.
Right.
Raise your hand.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, that brings us to item 7A, Science Textbook Adoption Proposal.
Assistant Superintendent of Teaching, Learning, and Student Services, Mrs. Judy Stanley, is here to provide the information on the science adoption.
Is it off? Can you hear me? Okay. I'm really excited to be bringing this proposal to you. I can only tell you about elementary, but the last time we adopted something for science was when I was teaching at Walnut, maybe my second year here in Emporia, and that would be almost 30 years ago. So really excited about bringing this to you. As you know, we have two goals. One is improving, we have multiple goals, but two of our goals are improving achievement for all students and providing instructional resources. So that is what this proposal is to address. This is just a little review of the process that we developed a couple of years ago when we adopted math. Our intention was to make sure every teacher of that content area had a voice. And so the first step is reviewing the current resource and determining if a new one is needed. And if needed, then a curriculum council is developed, representatives from every grade level and every building. That council selects samples to send out, and every teacher gets their hands on them, and they get to review it. They develop a rubric, and then the resource with the highest scores is the one that we bring to you. Our process looked a little bit different for science. You can go to the next slide, Casey. Our elementary schools had discovered through Discovery Textbook, which we had before, that was kind of what we were using to supplement science. They discovered something called mystery science, and several of our buildings were using it. Building principals used their building funds, and they used the mystery science. And we kind of found out about this through lead teachers. And so what we did last year at the beginning of the year, because we were getting a lot of information from elementary teachers saying we want to do mystery science. So we put out to them, do you want to move forward with mystery science, or do you want to do a full-blown adoption and go through the whole process like we did with ELA and math? Overwhelmingly, they wanted to do mystery science. They also asked that we hold, because we had just adopted ELA, we had just adopted math, and they needed a minute to really get good at those resources. So that is why we didn't bring you something last year. It also gave us some time to build the textbook line back up some. So that changed a bit for our secondary. We didn't need to bring everyone together. We got a little delayed start due to my delayed start at the beginning of the year. And so what I did is reached out to the secondary buildings, the science teachers, instructional coaches, and we as a team, they identified samples. We got the samples, they did the review. Just like before, we just didn't meet after school. They did all their meetings during PLC time. And so throughout that entire process, basically the same, once they got started, we have come up with these resources to recommend to you. Sorry, next slide, thank you. Oh, I forgot about this. All of these resources, here's the cool things about all of them. They are phenomena-driven, so they connect to real life. They are engaging investigations. I've had the pleasure of seeing some mystery science during my walkthroughs, and it was pretty fun to see from first grade to fifth grade, these kids, first graders all over the ground, working in teams, not by themselves, but working in teams and hands-on lessons. They're aligned to the next generation science standards. There are digital resources. The digital resources at elementary level are for the teachers. Everything else is hands-on for the kids. Secondary, it'll be digital for students and teachers. And then there are also the print resources. And now the programs. So at elementary, we are looking at mystery science. You're going to notice that the cost is significantly less than math and ELA. Kind of blew my mind. For a 7-year digital license, it's just under $63,000. So that is for all K-5 teachers. That we would pay for this year. It'll take care of the next 7 years. There will be an annual cost for the kits. This is different than what they've been doing. So they're using the digital online resource, but without the materials. So they're either buying them, they're making them, or they're skipping some of the pieces in the lessons. we would like to purchase the whole kit for each teacher, so they have what is needed. The thing is, Discovery Ed tends to tweak those lessons to keep them up to date and whatnot. So we cannot pay for the kits 7 years in advance, also because the cost of materials change. So it'll be an annual cost of approximately $50,000. I've already visited with Dr. Paul about that too, so he could plan ahead. That's something that we would need to budget for. Emporia Middle School is looking at experience science. This is through SAVIS. Total, this is about just under $285,000. That is for all the digital, all of the print, and the professional development for the 7 years. So once we pay for it this year, it's taken care of. It is brand new. The full program, they had a really good deep dive into what was available to them, but it will be available. They'll have their hands on everything in July. So they'll actually do some of their curriculum work in July if you approve this tonight. And at the high school level, they are looking at Inspire Science. Now, at the high school level, each course looked at what they would be using. So chemistry teachers looked at chemistry, biology looked at biology, physical science. You get where I'm going. But they all landed on Inspire Science from McGraw-Hill, which actually makes the funding a little bit easier. And their resources would be just under $125,000. So that is my proposal to you, to consider approving our science resources for implementation for next year. What questions do you have?
Judy, do you feel like, it looks like you're going to different providers at different levels. Do you feel like there's good, easy transitions from elementary to secondary and so forth? Yeah,
there's vertical conversations in the summer that we do, so that really those 5th grade teachers meeting with those 6th grade teachers, they can have that conversation together. That's not going to happen this summer because the resources are new and middle school's not going to get theirs till July. And that's okay, because next summer we'll actually have a better idea of where the gaps are. And then 8th grade would have opportunity to visit with 9th grade. The high school is just so different because each course, when you're looking at K through 8, they're teaching kind of everything, but that doesn't happen at the high school level. There will be gaps, but that is why we've set up our vertical conversations in the summer so that they have time together to make sure we're covering those pieces.
I had a question about the professional development piece that's included in the high school and the middle school programs. So what does that typically look like? Does someone come on site? Is it?
Yes, they will come on site in August, right before school starts, about 2 to 3 hours. And then each of them also will have a follow-up date later in the year. Because, you learn everything right at the beginning and you forget it the next day because you're busy getting the school year started. So what they do is they allow the teachers to get in it, and that's when you're really going to have questions about things once you're actually working with it. So then they'll come back on site and meet with the teachers again during a PLT day. The mystery science, they have videos that go with it. Teachers have been using it already. We do have the option to reach out to Discovery Ed and set it up separately if we would like someone to come in. But the teachers are already digging into that resource. I feel pretty good about that, but we always can reach out to see if they would like to have someone come in.
Thanks for explaining that.
Judy, you might not be able to answer this yet. We might come back to this after everyone has had a chance to get started with the resources. I know we've talked with math and ELA that maybe there's some unexpected gaps that we've had to fill that we weren't anticipating too. Is there any forethought into that, especially since you pointed out that the high school kind of has the different needs and each science class is more siloed than younger grades? Is there anything supplemental that you would expect we would need to consider?
I just like you said, I think we aren't going to know what those pieces are until we actually get into it. That's part of bringing them together this summer, is that they can look at, we always start with the standards. You start with the end in mind, and then they'll get into the resource to see where is every standard addressed. That's going to tell us whether we need to find something because they've either missed a standard. I don't know if you remember when Megan Powers was here, we were talking about the curriculum guides, and she shared that there was a standard in math, that there was definitely a gap between one grade level and another, and we have to supplement. We're going to find that out when they actually start digging into it.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you for that thorough presentation. I do not have it. It's because I'm on the wrong one. Here we go. I move to approve the science resources for core instruction as submitted.
Second.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you, and thank you to all of the teachers that worked on reviewing the resources. The next item is 8A, 2025-2026 Student Handbooks. This is a first reading.
We have Mr. Jared Giffen, Director of Human Resources, to lead the conversation. We also have principals here to answer questions.
Hi, good evening. As Dr. Harder mentioned, this is our first read of the student handbooks. I'm going to start with just a few things, and in case you feel open, just that first document. The items in green text on this page are actually the same in any of the other handbooks that we've got, the middle school and the high school. And all of these changes are reflective of what took place when we approved some different board policies throughout this year. We just wanted to make sure that those were updated in the student handbooks as we move forward into next year. You can see the specific items there on promotion and retention, on attendance. There was just some language on who we were designating in buildings to make some certain decisions, dress code, some things on medications and self-administration of medications, and then just some computer and device use. Those were the primary ones that were similar in each of the handbooks that addressed those. I had Mr. Kirk visit a little bit more about, there were just a couple of other elementary changes, and then Mr. Burns and Mr. Martin can address the things in the middle school and high school handbooks as well. Mr. Kirk.
I think Mr. Giffen was being pretty gracious. Our title page changed, the date and the year, and we made some changes, slight change in order to addrss FERPA on page 30. And that was really, we're pretty comfortable with all things. I want to give him credit. He does all of the heavy lifting, working with KASB and making sure all of the things, our policies match with board policies as well as what they suggest. And so makes our job as principals a lot easier to go through and just make any suggestions. And this year we did well. Also, I told, it's what second grade lead teacher or district PLCs were today, and I wanted to say, because they asked me to, thank you for the purchase of the mystery science kits. That's a huge additional piece that, in all honesty, they were kind of surprised and excited about and hoping that that would go through. So on behalf of all second grade teachers in the district, thank you very much. They very appreciative.
Good evening. So we actually got two that I'm going to do for you. I'm going to read for EMS. Miss Morgan Pearson asked me to cover for her. She's getting ready for her wedding, so she asked if I could kind of read some of hers. So I'm going to go through the Emporia Middle School first. First one is Change Principal Name. Lucky me. That would be me. So that's kind of exciting to see that. Page 11 looks like they added failure to comply and disruptive behavior to the list of minors. And they took out the requirements of ISS or OSS for disrespect to students or adults. So I think they were just moving some of that behavior language around. On page 12, they end up adding something different, which was extensive or excessive failure to comply. It's my understanding that's going to be for that student that, when you say, hey, I need you to come with me, maybe they're throwing things and they continue to not comply. That's what that excessive piece is kind of my understanding as to why they end up adding that on page 12. Page 31, we piloted a program at Emporia Middle School this year called School Within a School. We finally put some language in there on what that is and how it's assigned, where administrators can assign it. That could be for students that are still learning maybe some behaviors that they kind of need to be successful at the middle school, because there is that transition piece. It can also be used, I believe this year they used it for kind of an alternative program for students who may have been long-term suspended as well. That way they can kind of continue their education instead of just sitting at home. And then page 32 was talking about adding an update to Safe School Notice. That was just a clerical piece that they had to add to that. Do you have any questions about Emporia Middle School? All right, I'm gonna switch on over to the high school then. A couple on here. One, page 13 through 16, we actually end up adding on the handbook itself almost kind of like a table or chart that kind of outlines the different behaviors and outlines kind of what the possible consequences could be. Before it was just kind of a list like A1, A2, and it would kind of say what they were. There'd be an asterisk there that said possible suspension, but this way it kind of really spells out and has some transparency as to what behaviors could possibly lead to what consequences. That'll help students and parents whenever they're kind of in question what that looks like. So there's currently a chart, it'll say like level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Level 1, you're looking at a teacher detention, possible like Friday night school, which is like an after-school detention. Level 2, you're looking at infractions that may be ISS. Level 3 could be ISS-OS combination. And then the level 4 are those more severe ones, maybe possession of drugs, things of that nature. The ones that are really serious that we're looking at, out-of-school suspensions with possible long-term hearings to go along with that. It really just, like I said, adds that transparency piece. It makes it a lot easier. That way students can look at this and be like, oh, you're out. It says it right there. I did that, instead of just kind of taking a guess and not really understanding how we as administrators are making those decisions. Page 24, we actually tweaked how we were doing dances. Currently, the way we've done it this past year, we had a back-to-school dance, we had homecoming, we had a winter sports dance, and then we have prom. What we're doing is we're taking two of the dances, the winter dance and the back-to-school dance, which had the least amount of attendees, and we're making a kind of like a sweetheart dance. It's a third formal. The freshmen and sophomores are really excited. They really wanted to have another formal. The date will be around kind of that Valentine's Day, but depending on athletics, we may have to kind of tweak that. And that one will actually allow out-of-town guests also, because currently the only time you can have out-of-town guests is for prom and for homecoming. So we're just kind of expanding opportunities. The students really like getting dressed up. That was a big push. They wanted to do it this year. I was like, it's kind of hard to do it the last second. But we decided to kind of put that language in there as well. So that's been added there. We didn't change what the rules were for out-of-town dates. It's all the same. Still can't have middle school students. But we did kind of mention that there's a new dance that we took in and took out the old ones. On page 25, we just added a little blurb about parking guidelines. Right now, I'm sure you're aware some seniors are allowed to purchase senior parking lots. If for any reason, maybe their parking privileges were revoked, maybe they were doing donuts in the parking lot, just driving really recklessly, and we do have to revoke privileges, we just put a little piece in there that said we would not refund that parking. So really small clerical piece. Page 33 talks about eligibility. It's going to show that you have to pass 7 of 9 classes now. We're not adding a class, but we are actually making CAP a graded class. So with CAP being a graded class, we didn't want to say you still had to pass 2, and then students were failing maybe 3, or 6 of 8 or 6 of 9, and then they could fail 3 of their core classes. So we wanted to kind of up that to kind of match what we currently have already. So it's 7 out of 9. CAP will be worth a quarter credit. So that they do get credit for that class. Hopefully it'll put some more buy-in. Some of the students right now with CAP are like, I don't know if I have to do it, because it's currently not for a grade, but this will start being added to their GPA, and they do get a grade for that class. Page 38 talks about language adding, clarifying students enrolling in college classes. Right now, if you take 5 credits worth of college classes, you can get a high school credit. 4 goes down to 3/4 of a credit. If it's 3 credit hours, you get a half credit. 2, you can get a quarter. We had some students that were taking 1 college credit class, and it's kind of hard to do 1/8. So we just put some language in there that says if you take a 1 college credit class, usually at a university, that's something like, bowling or frisbee golf, not knocking any of those. I took one of those when I was in KU, but we're just basically saying those will no longer be worth high school credits, just because it's kind of hard to calculate that. And then page 41, we added a section that actually I believe was already in there talking about students that were graduating early. We just put a line in there talking about that. That refers to students who are graduating prior to their senior year. We didn't want any confusion about students who graduate that semester have to go get approval from Mr. Fisher and then get approval from you to have to graduate earlier. So we just wanted to spell that out in case there was questions. We're talking about students who earn enough credits who want to graduate prior to that 12th grade. Does anyone have any questions for me about EHS?
I just love that you use the student feedback to get to the dance thing. I appreciate that they were involved with the handbook, as they should be, so.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
I agree. Thank you. Appreciate it.
The very last thing just deals with the Flint Hills Learning Center. They use the high school handbook for most of their procedures and things. There are just a few little things that they were adding to their addendum. One was just clarification on some arrival times, and then changing a heading to make it a little bit more clear. Any questions we can answer for you about any of the proposed handbooks? All right, thank you.
Okay, item 8B is the capital projects review.
Mr. Corey Nicolette is here, Director of Maintenance and Grounds, to give an update on all the projects they've been working on.
Good evening. So about 14 months ago, we started talking about the big book I made of the immediate project needs. And I feel like we've done pretty well so far. The document we've got there shows kind of what's done and what we're actively working on. And there's a lot in the done column, and there's not very much left in the to-do column. So good progress, I think, on that front. The big one that's come up is the boilers, which we talked about. You guys approved those, I think, a couple sessions ago. And then I'm working on the secondary and tertiary costs there. We have to remove that storefront. While we're doing that, we're going to put the new door in, update it since it's already going to be out. That's all stuff that I'm working on right now. And then as far as RTUs, the high school, I think we're doing pretty good there. We're working through just getting everything up to 100%. The parking lots, I think, are all a vast improvement over what we had before. We've had a little time with them now. It looks like overall they're really good, and I think they're servicing a lot better than the previous versions we had. Doors, we had a lot of doors that we did last year. High school and village were the two biggest places, some at the middle school. We do have some ventilation issues. The new doors seal up a lot better than the old ones, which means that the HVAC's no longer dialed in for the appropriate amount of suction and pushing that the air does. So we're working on that right now to get that to balanced out. That's a work in progress, but hopefully we can do that at kind of a low cost. We've got some ideas to see if we can just get it fixed with what we can do. If not, we'll call in, attack it as we need to. The roofs across the board have been ongoing. They're always going to be ongoing. The roofs, they never get to end, unfortunately. We do have statistically a lot less leaks. This last rain, I think I had 3 or 4 roof leaks out of the whole district, which I used to have 20 to 30 to 40 every time, so pretty significant improvement there. Makes it a lot easier on everybody, I think. The gymnasiums, I've got nothing but positive feedback on the floors and the paint we did at the high school. I think everybody likes the update we did there. Not this summer, but a year from now, I'll be approaching again to talk about the JV gym, painting that, and then doing some other kind of secondary stuff that we couldn't do while we were doing the big part. But, we're not quite there yet, but we're getting close. So carpet, we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit, but we did get the hallways all done last year. Again, I've got universally good things back on that. It's holding up really well, and it looks a lot nicer. Integrates well with the bond stuff because we use the same thing as the bond, so you really can't tell what was old and new, which is, I think, the goal we had there. The sewage lines and everything, all that went really well. It's all holding up really well. Looks really good, so I think we can move on past all those that we talked about. And then the windows at the middle school, we did a bunch of windows. Actually, an update on that is there was a little bit of a draft going through. They had 2 different brands that they'd put in, and one brand has the way that they overlap. The install doesn't call for caulking in the middle, but there was a draft, so they're actually going to come back right after school gets out and caulk those windows that were of that manufacturer so that we don't have that draft anymore. So I think they're staying behind their product on that, which is what we would ask them to do. The window dressings, I'm still working on finding a company that does that volume that can squeeze it in over summer. I haven't got that worked out yet, still working on it, but we did get several curtain rods and curtains for some of the classrooms so they wouldn't have just the beaming sun and all that stuff. We are working on an HVAC for the rooftop units, a report to see what we need to do. The preliminary report is that one unit's not in very good shape and one unit's in really bad shape. So I'm still waiting on the report from that. Hopefully I'll have it this week, maybe next week, so I can bring you guys something on that. And then, let's see, I think that's most of the big stuff we've had without getting into getting ahead of myself. Is there any questions anybody has on any of the updates or how things are holding up or what we're doing next?
Corey, it seems like a lot of things like these type of things, inflation's hit. Are you seeing more than expected increases in prices, or are they pretty moderate, or?
So far, they're moderate, but there's a lot of talk that it's going to be going up.
Okay.
The other thing I found is everybody's rushing to get as many projects in as they can. Last year, we started this discussion in February and March, and I was able to get pretty much everything we planned on turned around in that 6 to 8 week period. This year, I started in December and January getting people lined up, and I've struggled to keep consistent, getting people called back and that kind of stuff. Still getting stuff done, but it's just been a lot more work than it was last year because everybody seems to be rushing to get as much done as they can right now. So people are just booked up a little more. Okay.
Okay, the next item is 8C, replace carpet at Emporia Middle School and Emporia High School.
Corey, is this you again?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Has Pam on there, so,
Oh.
thank you.
She can if she wants to, I suppose.
I think she wants you to talk about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, like I said, the carpet, doing all of it last year was just too much. Doing the hallways was really taking off a lot. We did pull it off. I think it turned out great. This year, we're looking at doing the classrooms and offices at the middle school and high school, exclusive of the auditorium at the high school and excluding both libraries. The libraries are just a huge amount of labor. You gotta move everything to one side, do the carpet, move everything to the other side, do carpet, and just, that's too much for the timeline we have for this summer. The auditorium, if you have been to the high school auditorium, you recall they all go down at an angle. So it's a lot of cutting to make it look right. And just when we looked at the labor time, we just put that with the library. So next summer, I'll be bringing that to you to do those, and then we'll look at some of the grade schools. The grade schools were built different times, carpet different times, and have a lot less carpet. So those should be easier, but we'll be bringing a little bit of the grade schools and then the auditorium and libraries next summer. So for this summer, we're looking at the middle school, $345,037.03. And again, that's all offices and all classrooms that weren't already done in the bond and that have carpet currently. So we're not adding carpet anywhere that doesn't have it. We're not, if it has carpet, it gets replaced with new carpet. All that carpet's gonna match the hallways that we did and be integrated seamlessly into it. You shouldn't even be able to tell the new from the old once they're done. And then do you want me to do the high school next or stop and do them separately? Altogether, okay. So the high school, again, doing the classrooms and offices, which if you recall, the office complex we did not do last year. We just did the hallways in the office complex. So there's a lot of offices there, and then throughout the high school, there's a lot more offices to do. They're $434,278.44 for all of that, and that will be the same carpet again. Different carpet at both schools, but matching what we've already done. So it'll have the red specs in the high school one, and then be the darker gray in the middle school one. And that would be by the same company that we did last year. So they're familiar with our buildings. It would even be the same crew. I talked to them. So the integration into it should be pretty seamless because they've already been here.
Do you have any, excuse me, do you have any idea how long some of the carpet that's being replaced, how long it's been there?
Yeah, actually, the middle school is original. So it's
So-
built in, I think, 93. So, 32 years, give or take, depending on when they laid it. And then the high school's roughly the same. Some is 20 and some is up to 30 years old, depending on where we're looking at. There's a couple spot rooms that were added on later or done just here and there that may be newer, but overall, we're looking at 20 to 30-year-old carpet everywhere.
Good.
Do you expect the new carpet will last how long will this last?
This is pretty good commercial grade carpet. It's higher end and it's the squares, so we can change it out in those high traffic areas if we have to. Or if one gets messed up, we're not having to take a whole roll. So, 15, 20, 25 years even. Some of it depends on how good we take care of it, obviously, which we're gonna try to do the best we can there. And then the other part is just the traffic volume. Do we maintain the same amount of students we've had? How much does it fluctuate? Because those variables are gonna change things. But it should be a long time before we're talking about this again. Hopefully none of us are talking about this again.
And then kind of a follow-up to that, and I know that we've talked about this before, so I'm hoping you say yes. The extra squares, are they going to still have them? Like, say in 5 years, we need more squares. Are they going to still make this carpet? What do you expect, or should we buy, what's the plan to buy the replacement squares?
I'm going to hop on before you answer, because I also was wondering the same thing, but then, like, what kind of price increase should we be anticipating? And would it be prudent, even though we can't do the labor, do we even have the space to store the squares for next summer?
Okay, so I can speak to hopefully all that. The manufacturer has no cancellation date on this product. So, I mean, obviously they can announce it tomorrow, but the manufacturer I've been talking to, which is who does it, this is part of their catalog. They intend to keep going. Everything is built to order, so it's not impossible if we did need some later down the road that it couldn't be remanufactured to these specs because they would have these specs already on hand. But it's a catalog item now, so there's no predictability that they would stop offering it in the near future. They know of our plans to do this over years, and it's continued to be an option that they've presented. So I think we're good on that front. Buying it now, we don't have a lot of storage for it. And then we would also risk that if it did get wet or whatever, we would have mold issues. The risk of losing it is probably, and the cost of storing it would probably be more than the risk of losing it to cost. The other thing is we are using the Omnia bid, which is very competitive. And through that cooperative, the prices are really good through it. So, I mean, it'd be a gamble either way, but I would think we'd be ahead just buying it as we needed it. And then we're also not, having to store it. We're also not short, because that'd be about the worst thing is if we did buy a bunch and we needed more. Now we're talking different lot numbers again and age.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Okay, I will say, the carpet, I was at the art show last week, and I know some of you guys were there too. The carpet in the hallway at the high school looks so good, so, anyway. Anyway.
It's really raining.
This is an action item.
I'll make a motion to approve the replacement of the remaining carpet at Emporia Middle School and Emporia High School as submitted.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. I know. Yeah. Do be raining.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is 8D, renovation of the middle school track and field. This is also a first reading.
Okay, we have a team of people, and Mrs. Pam Stranathan, Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, will begin the presentation and then call people up as needed.
Okay, and we have not rehearsed this, so it may be a little clunky, just so you know. No, I just want to, I know this is a very big project, and I know it's one that's very well needed in the district. And so there's several people here tonight. We have a representative from ATG and the Kansas rep also that will talk about the project that they've worked with us on to propose. Adrian is here from the middle school, and John, and also Bo, which would like to share their thoughts on this and also on the current space. As their thoughts have been a part of what has developed into this project and into the need for the district. What I have broke the rule on the slideshow, but I did that so that Casey would not have to open 15 different slides and pictures and stuff and tried to put it all together on there. I'm going to go through the pictures pretty quick. I'll start with the second slide though. So we're going to do kind of a review because I know there's been some transition in administration. I think what's important to know who approved what, who was a part of what conversations, and how we got to where we were. Then we'll have photos of the current track and the throwing area, and then the principals and ADs will speak. And then I'll talk a little bit about the funding, and then some options. Then Joe with ATG will come up and talk about that, and then we'll do questions at the end if there's any questions at that time. So let's start with going back in time a little bit. So I didn't put on here the 1993, when the building was built and the track was put into play. And I did not put on here either because I had to go into the vault since board docs and everything was on there up to 2008. But in 2004 was the first time the resurfacing occurred on the middle school track. So usually that's about a 10-year max on resurfacing. So the last time since that's been resurfaced is 2004, and we're at 2024. So it goes along with our carpet. It's held up very well, except within the last several years, it's now started to deteriorate, which it should. The product should not last 20 to 30 years at the weathering stage that it has. So in 2022, discussion with previous administrators in the roles had started with the projects with the track resurfacing for the high school and for the middle school. And at that time, what happened was the priority became the high school, and the middle school was put off to be done at a later time. So in 2023 is when it was approved, and David was here at that time and was a part of that very quick moment in time of that approval of that process and then moving in. So from 2024 was when the budget, we started looking at the budget and going, okay, the need of the high school or the middle school is great. Listening to the principals, listening to parents that have been talking to the principals and listening to coaches of what can we do and how can we plan this out, because this is a big project and we need to look at it budget-wise of when and what's a good point to put that into our budget. So those discussions started, and then in 2025 is when we decided, you know, we've got to do something. The cracks are at the point they are, the field is at the point something has to change with it. Or we're going to start running into some safety issues that we do not want to run into. So that is where we met. We talked about the needs, then and then looked on by board. ATG was the one that redid your football field for you, the turf. I have worked on other projects with Joe and have confidence in their work and also their pricing. And so called him up since he's on by board and said, will you come out? Will you look at the space out there? Will you give us some ideas? At the time we started having the discussions with that, the throwing area came up, which I'm sure Bo got excited about, to move that small space and look at it differently also. And then we did a little bit of future talk of, you know, the what ifs and if that space, and Joe gave us some recommendations for that. That's not part of this project, the what ifs down the road, but it does give us some starting points for further discussions of other things that we could do in that area to make it more like a complex. So going to some of the track pictures that you saw there, I'm not going to talk about all of them, but you can see where things have crumbled, have deteriorated. A lot of this has to do with a couple of things. It has to do first with the maintenance on a field and a track. There are things that need to be done. And over time, which we have seen with some of the things in our district, the deferred maintenance or the upkeep of things have not been to the quality that we would like them to be. And so Corey has made significant changes in that. One of them you can see, especially on the field part of this. I know we didn't have exact pictures of the field, but you can see the field off of the track. You can see where we've lost the dome in a football field, in which you should have. That helps with drainage. And so now a lot of that drainage drains onto the track, which increases your water running underneath and through the cracks. You can see on some of these pictures too where the edge is separated away from the curb, which once again allows for more moisture and things to get underneath that. One of the things that to me is most concerning, and having kids that have done sports and have done contact sports on the field, is the hardness of the field, and where we have not gone in and have not tilled it and done the thing and re-turfed it like we should be doing. And I mean turf as in sod, to make that surface so that it is not this compacted dirt with a lot of weeds on it. And so that is very concerning, and something has to be done with that. That cannot continue to go on. The field looks very similar to the sides. If you look at the side there, you go across the field, and it's the same. A irrigation system needs to be put into that field to get that so that we are not having it in the condition that it is moving forward if we stay with a grass field. So any questions on any of those pictures? Corey has gone out and looked at that. Joe, if you have any questions on those, we can answer those before moving on. It's deteriorated. There's lots and lots and lots of cracks. So moving on to the throwing area. I think this was a great, at the time, this was a great idea to use that space over there. There's just so many things with that space over there. The ground, the surface, and to look at an improved area, the space where people have to walk over to get to it, the students going back and forth, and just not adequate throwing areas for the sports that we have that you would need a throwing space for. So that was an area that we looked at too, that what can we do to bring that back over to the site where the other fields are at. Any questions on those pictures? There's more. Corey, kudos to Corey. Corey went out and I asked for more pictures and he sent hundreds, I felt like. It was a document, but he did a great job. And so we just tried to pull a few for everybody to look at. So, all right. Moving past our pictures, I'm going to let Adrian come up and speak, or John, or how they decided, and then Bo's going to also come up and speak. So I will step off the podium.
Good evening. First, I want to start off by saying thank you. I don't know if I'll have a chance to address you guys again, and Mr. Martin takes all the time on Wednesdays to talk to you guys. So thank you for the last 3 years of being able to serve as athletic director and administrative principal at the school that I went to. It's been a dream. I was thinking about how to convey this message and being transparent and positive and also realistic. I wanted to start because 2 years ago, I was at the middle school when they opened up the new gym space and the concession area. And I want to share some of those impacts that had on our indoor sports like volleyball, basketball, boys and girls basketball, wrestling. The addition to those facilities, I don't know if this is high enough or not. The addition to those facilities have really let us incorporate more summer activities. They've let us work with the rec center, with the high school on doing events. We've been able to host league events, so instead of our parents driving an hour to Topeka or Manhattan or Junction City, we've gotten so much positive feedback that during those seasons, they can go here. Not only the economic advantage of bringing in 8 league schools, but also I don't have to drive an hour to watch my 8th grader play basketball. So those additions, our concession stands, everything has been so positive for those sports. But I do know that if you are not a parent or a community member that's out to support our outdoor sports, some of this other stuff might not be known to you. So I wanted to share it today. I also wrote it down. If you know me, I'm not someone that likes to read from a paper, but I don't want to miss anything because it's very important to me. Okay, starting with soccer. Our soccer program does not have a soccer field to practice on. We practice on a field behind the football field up there. We have goals. We have no lines marked, nothing, no flags. And then the rec center lets us host all our home games at Trisa, which is amazing. They don't charge us for that. We're out there. But it's off campus, so our kids can't go straight from, I'm a math teacher, so straight from math class to go support our soccer team. They have to go to Trisa. Next, our football program. Our football program, since I've been there every year, we've been able to have more and more games at the high school. Mr. Welch and I have coordinated that. Their coaches and their programs have been very helpful with that. Every year, I think we've had more. This year, we were able to play a little more than half of our games there, which is awesome because once we use those facilities, it also showed us the need for our facilities to improve. And our track and field program. We do not host a track meet at our campus. We're not able to. Concerns with students getting hurt because of the track surface, and then we just don't have the space. And I'll speak about that later, but we do host a small meet at the high school. They let us use their facilities, and then we host our big meet. We weren't able to this year, but we'll do it every other year at ESU Welch Stadium, and that is a fantastic event. Our kids love it. We love putting it on. So one of the main reasons that I think it is important to really revamp those outdoor facilities, I'm going to start just with safety. We do not have a secure access to our field. If we're hosting a football game or a track meet or anything, there is no gate keeping cars out. I can't control as athletic director who's coming in. If you've ever been out there and walked the track, you can literally walk in from 1,000 different directions, which is concerning because we can't control who is at our events. We've already mentioned the track surface, so I won't go too much into that, but I do know that it's a concern of our coaches, with our kids getting, we had a lot of kids last year with shin splints and just running on that, which was a concern. The other big safety concern is lights. We have no lights at our middle school field, so during football season, when it's really hot in the summer, if we want to practice in the morning to avoid the heat, we cannot because it's still dark out, and if we want to practice after school, we cannot because we can't practice late into the day, and we're obviously not going to have our students out there in the heat with that adverse condition. So we're sometimes going days without practice, or our athletes are kind of funny seeing a bunch of 8th grade and 7th grade boys running around the halls, but that's their conditioning sometimes. They'll be running inside the school because we don't have lights to be out there. And sorry, I've had a cough for like 3 weeks and I can't get rid of it. One of the biggest things that I face every time we host a football game at our campus is we don't have any seating. We have one set of bleachers on the west side. If you've come to watch our games, our community's still out there. They're still coming to support their kids, parents, friends, grandparents, but it quickly fills up with our wild middle school bunch, who I love to death, and then you just see parents and visitors on the outside bringing lawn chairs and sitting around, where then it becomes an on-the-field problem because they're so close to the field, and it's not a very professional look at a middle school event where you're having to circle up the field and sit with your lawn chairs. So we don't really have any seating. We also, on average, I was doing the numbers, and I'm going to give a low estimate. On average, we have about 200 people at our games. That's not counting kids or teachers or anyone that gets in free. And we don't have restrooms up there. During football season, we pay to have a portable restroom brought in, and I can tell you that almost after every event, I hear from our parents and the other teams and their coaches, hey, where's the restroom? And I can only direct them to that place, which I think we can do better than that. The last part is the middle school is in a weird position where to get to that field, I know Mr. Martin almost didn't make it the other week when it was wet out. It's very hard to climb up the hill. So if you are someone with a disability or limited mobility, or even if it's not really wheelchair accessible, you cannot park in that gravel field and wheel over the grass. You also can't go up the hill. So we've had sometimes scenarios where I've had to answer calls where I have to tell them we don't have a way to help you get to the game. And I hate that because I don't want to turn anyone away, especially our elderly and our population that needs the most help. And we just don't have a way for them to get there. And on parking and accessibility, we don't have a parking area for the game. Fortunately, this hasn't been an issue since I've been there, but I'm always thinking emergency plan, how to keep our kids safe. If we were to have the parking dominoes that happens on a regular Thursday night, and we would have to get an emergency safety vehicle to respond, to get through there, to get to the field, I don't know how we do it. We had one scenario during track last year. Luckily, they just drove across the field, but that's because there was no one parking in that gravel lot. That fills up really fast. So I would like to take, if we were to go with this proposal, I would like to take a look at that on how those emergency reaction vehicles could get there. Do you have questions for me? I know I gave you guys a lot, but I'm hoping to answer any questions you guys have.
Before Adrian sits down, one of the things that came up today that was something that I don't think Bo and Adrian and I had really discussed, but you want to share a little bit? I think you had shared about the teams, where you've got a 7th grade A and B and an 8th grade A and B team, but because of the lighting we talked about, you're not able to.
Yeah. So back to the lighting issue, we are been very successful in the last couple of years of getting kids to go out and participate. We have a big 8th grade class going to the high school that are going to do great things, a lot of football players there. And I'm speaking football just because they're the ones that use that field the most with the light. If we have a 7th grade A game and B team game go, and they go late, we have to cancel the games, or we would put in that position because we don't have any light out there. And working with the high school, it's been nice when we're able to share and use their field because they can just flip the lights on. And there's been many times this year where I'm like, if this was scheduled at Emporia Middle School, I'd have to disappoint a lot of parents who travel from other communities or tell other coaches, we have to cancel the game. Because at that point, I'm going to cancel the game. I'm not going to let kids play in an area that's not safe because they can't see. But I also know that high school's been very gracious at us letting us use their facilities, but at the same time, it does put a lot of stress because they have soccer, they have football, they have multiple teams. And not all of our games are there. We have more games there, but I do know several times this year where we would have had to not finish our events. And that's not something you want to do because then people don't want to come play if you can't even finish the events you were contracted to schedule for. And you don't want to rob those kids of that experience anyway. That's what they look forward to.
Next up, we have Bo. Bo's going to share a little bit, and he'll kind of overlap too about the football and the importance of that, especially into their feeder program. So,
hello, everybody. Good job by Adrian. I'm going to piggyback onto Adrian a little bit and kind of talk about kind of our coordination with our high school and our middle school. I think we've done a good job with that, but I think, we've been fortunate to have a couple coaches who have thought like us and want the best for the middle school. Our football and our soccer teams, they share the turf, and then they practice other places. And so to ask them to give up their time on the turf that's a big ask. Our football team, they have this week, soccer's got this next week, and you think about a football schedule on a Monday night, you got games, Friday night you have games, so you only have 2 or 3 practices on that turf. You're giving up one of those nights. And sometimes 2 of those nights, depending on, if we've given up a soccer or a football game. And like I said, that is a big ask. And we've been fortunate the last year or two from our coaches. They've understood that and have found ways to make that happen, because nobody wants to tell parents and kids, well, we have to end this game in the second quarter because there's no light out. There's a lot that goes into that. So I think that's really important. And I want to give some credit to our coaches who have done that and kind of seen big picture and trying to build some things. But I think that's really important, and I think we're all in this together. We want the best for all programs, whether it's high school, middle school. We've worked to get it that way, but I think this is a big step forward, if we could make this happen. As far as the track, the throwers areas, I think that happened. That's been a lot longer than what I really give it. I mean, I think that's been at least 10 years maybe that we've moved that across the street, and in talking to Coach Wells, just kind of talking through things of, some kind of detriments to our throwing areas being over there. Obviously, the biggest one is safety. Our students having to cross the street every day to get over there. And we're not talking 5 kids, we're talking 20 to 30, sometimes. That's a lot of kids with, a few, 2 or 3 coaches that may go over there with them. Kind of building on that, Coach Wells was kind of embarrassed to share this, but he said there's been times we've had some novice discus throwers who have let one get away from them, and it's gone towards the road as a car's going by, and has almost hit a vehicle as it's passing. So he wanted to add that into safety as well. I think another one, like on a day where we have maybe a varsity track meet or a JV track meet, and our team is divided, and the majority of our coaches go to the meet, and we have a few that stay for the other team's practice. That makes it really hard, when our throwers' areas are on the other side of the school, across the street, and we've got to divide kids. That makes it really hard for supervision. If we only have 2 or 3 coaches who stayed back, and we've got 40 kids, but we've got to divide those coaches because we've got our jumpers up here, and we're using the track, and then we've got that over there. That if we could have them all in one central location, it just makes it so much better to be able to manage practice and coordinate things and just keep it all kind of together. Coach Wells really talked about just the fact of building team with track. I think we look at track as it's individual events and things like that. Coach Wells is such a good coach, been doing it for so long. It's a great point. You want to build team. You want to build chemistry with your group. You want to have them all together. You want them to see what each other are doing. And, if somebody comes along and throws a PR in the disc or the shot and everybody gets excited, well, that one needs to be a team thing. Not that those 20 kids on the other side of school saw, but nobody else did. He also talked about, I'm just kind of rambling through my head of kind of thoughts that we've had. He talked about the javelin. It's more safety, things being too close together over there. It's a lot of the same, but moving that back over, there's so many good things that come from that definitely worth our time. That would be a part of our middle school as well. Throwers working together, which in my mind is a good thing. Our younger kids working with our older kids, coaches working together. I can't think enough of, in building programs, how beneficial that would be. Move a little bit to the field, football, kind of adding things up. Adrian talked a little bit about it, about how that's been really beneficial with the new gym. I mean, that's opened up. We have so many more teams practicing now, and it's taken such a burden off of the high school, being able to use the gyms over there, more tournaments, just so many more things. I look at the field, I think about the rec center using our high school fields on Saturday morning for rec football, how nice that would be to have another field, and maybe a nicer field. I know that they get really excited, the younger teams do, when they can come play on the turf at the high school. And to have another nice field that's secure and they could go do that, just enhances everything that we're trying to do. It's building good partnerships, building good programs. We talk about youth a lot and really wanting to build things, and I can't think of a better reason to do it, than what we've kind of presented and kind of what's been talked about. I think that there would be a lot of positive in our schools. I know there would, in our community, and doing things for our kids. I mean, that's what we're here for. So that's all I've got. You guys have any questions for me?
I did wonder how much the marching band has had to also accommodate
Yeah,
for
I'm glad
the
you brought that
extra
up.
usage.
I'm glad you brought that up.
And what opportunities, like if we had a better field at the middle school, would that
100%.
open for kids to transition to the high school?
So just to give you an example, in the summer, football team, soccer team, band, all working on our turf. We sit down every year in the spring, and we try to work that out, and that gets really hard. We try to get Glenn on with the band. Football team needs on, soccer team needs on. They go at different times. Sometimes there are conflicts. Again, our coaches have been good, working with each other. We're going to go early, so you can go at this time. With the other field, it eliminates that. It really does.
Well, and in summer, you also have both boys and girls soccer
Correct.
competing for time, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Soccer uses the Jones a little bit, obviously not as big, but band, it really is. It's the big one, because they use their time. They get after it, and they're a team, and to have that other field for somebody to use that we could rotate, it just eliminates all of that, and honestly probably gives them more time with less restrictions. So.
What's the relationship like with Emporia State in terms of using their soccer field or their football field?
As far as I've been here, it's been good. You know, we use it for our high school football games.
I mean, for practices like during the summer and,
We haven't done that as much. There have been some cases where we've needed to, and every time we have needed something, they have been there for us. They have taken care of us. They've realized it. You know, I'll give you an example. Friday, we're supposed to have rain, and I've already checked in on possibility of maybe using softball field if we get rained out. They're great. You gotta just follow some steps, you know, make sure we check with the right people. They've been really good at working with us.
So there was some discussion about the things that we have across the street on the south side there. Is there room, do we have plentiful room to move those back?
I believe we do. Yeah, I think in the plans, I think that they will show that we have all of that area. It's laid out, isn't it, on the, yeah.
Okay.
I will add one personal note. My mom had a lot of mobility issues due to hip problems, and Sophia threw javelin junior year and then would have loved to senior year, but COVID. And she was not able to ever go watch her throw unless she sat in her car in the Tech College parking lot. And so we talk about community accessibility, and, you know, we're not that small of a community, but we are small enough that whole families come to events like this, so it would be nice to have that in a better place that's more accessible.
It'd just be more comfortable. Yeah, and that's really big. Anything else? All right, thank you, guys.
Adrian forgot something, he's back.
Honestly, now that I've been up here, you're going to have a hard time keeping me off here. So I did want to share real fast. I know that there's I can't think of, being an Emporia kid, I'm thinking of any other place that has a track in town besides the high school, the college, and the middle school. I forgot to mention this, but with our track, we're not the only people that also use our track. Currently, the Flint Hills Club track has reached out to us and is using our track. The rec center uses for their program for their club. They use it for about 8 weeks, twice a week. We've had some other private organizations ask to use it, and they're out there also. So it's not just being used for our middle school track practice. There's not a lot of options for track programs in Emporia for those facilities because it's so unique to have a facility for track. But all those other programs also use it during the summer. And I guess that's just one more thing I wanted to share with you guys.
Would you remind me, does the middle school use the high school track for their walkathon in the fall, or do they use is it just depending on availability?
No, every year we use the high school.
Okay,
It's just has the seating, we have the concessions and the bathrooms there.
Okay.
If we had a whole sixth grade up on our track and they had to go to the bathroom, that'd be in and out traffic. So it's just, high school always lets us up there. So we use their facilities for our walkathon.
And I know we've talked a lot about the sports and everything, but the other thing that my experience with this is when you have another field that's available is that your PE classes have that flexibility too to go out there, and other classes and especially, one of the big things at the middle school is when it rains. Pretty much when it rains, if the football field or the field's not over at the high school available, then they have to cancel their events and stuff because of that field. The nice thing about turf, we all know it drains quickly so that you're able to use it even on those days where there's rain and stuff. But it's really interesting when you put in these turf fields and you watch how much usage they start getting by academically too, which is kind of neat, that people realize, hey, I can take a group of kids out there. I have a space where I can take them, or where it's a secured space where they can take them. In my prior positions I've been in, I've even seen where special needs students are able to go out there and use those facilities because the ground is stable. The ground is where they can go in there and they can do things, whereas before the open space was not conducive for their needs. So it's an exciting time to look at that. So now the next thing you're wondering, how are we going to fund this, right? So what I've shared up here on this screen and everything is that this comes out of our capital outlay. And just a reminder, capital outlay, we are limited to what we can do. It's really bricks and mortar if you're thinking about that. And it's not, we can't pay salaries out of that. We can't do things on the teacher side, you know, where we would like to. It's kind of like our at-risk money. There's limitations on what we can do with that. So that, when you look at your capital outlay in our budget, our capital outlay is always going to be healthy. I mean, because it's always going to have money going in. It's not going into the 80% of our budget that covers salaries and stuff. It's going into the bricks and mortar. So the good thing about this is Corey and I have had long conversations and have looked at this budget and put some plans together moving forward so that we definitely don't want to deplete it all in one year and we get stuck with something major happen. So a lot of times you've heard me share where we're going to try to do part in one year and part in the next year. So it's not just stripping out a budget or limiting it down to just a limited amount. One of the things, I put the balances up there, we have $3,281,000 left in this year. We still have a payment of $850,000 that's still coming in. And then next year, we're projecting that to be at 5.5. And that's keeping our mills at 8, which is pretty typical. We would not lower that. There wouldn't be a reason to lower that because otherwise, any money to make up that difference would have to come out of our general. And so that's why we want to keep our mills where they are. That still keeps everything balanced like we want. We want to keep that at the 54, and so it keeps it balanced. And Corey and I have been talking and also putting into play because one of the important things that he's working on right now is looking at the playgrounds in all of our elementaries. I would say our track and our playgrounds are things that we have to do something. They're at the point now to where they have to have some sort of improvement to those. The track is in a more limited space and easier to plan and do in a quicker time period. The playgrounds, we've got people looking at them right now. We've got people giving us some information on what's deteriorated, what's not. We thought the Kansas Avenue, we were going to be able to repopulate the set that was over there that was in, and we found out once we took that down and looked at it, it's not where we can use it again. So there's a lot. That one also will involve the elementary staff and teachers, teachers and the principals to have bigger discussions. And that one, to me, would be a committee-driven. It really does need to have a lot of people looking at that, especially when you're doing elementary playgrounds. So, and we just needed a big evaluation. That's what Corey's working on our space of where we can, because a lot of stuff on our elementary playgrounds have been positioned here, then moved here, then some cement here, and we really need a bird view of that, of what that's going to look like. So any questions on the funding?
I do have a question on the current and projected balances. For 25-26, you have 5.5. Is that what you anticipate the opening balance is going to be, or do you anticipate that's what we're going to budget?
So that is what we would see as the revenue coming in from the mills that we would draw off the levy. And so, those payments come in throughout the year, so. Yeah, that's pretty set. Now, the, valuation can go down, but that's putting us, even if it went down slightly, we would still be in good shape. That's what I feel really solid about that number. I don't think that number is going anywhere for next year. And keep in mind, any of that too can roll. It can roll into, so we can carry over also.
Is there a limit where we can roll, or if it's not used? I know we use it.
Yes, you can. So that can keep building. That's one of those that can build.
Earlier today, we heard about needs assessment, and there was a lot of curriculum resources that are needed, I think. And so looking at this, would we be able to, instead of 8 mills, could we do 5 mills and put 3 mills into operating, or can we do that?
And that's a good question, Art, because other people, have asked that same thing. So this is what happens. If we lower the mill in the capital, so if we take that 8 down to 5, so right now, aid is calculated at about 5 meals, right? So if, let's say you reduce that in half, you're only going to have 2 meals. And so if we took 4 off of the 8, put it and balanced up, it would change our LOB, because that's what would have to change. So we'd have to start changing those numbers. Our LOB would have to go up. Well, the LOB's right at 30, so for that to go up, you'd have to go up 3 on the LOB to take that up, which it's voted on, but it's also going to impact your taxes. So it's a really funny juggle with all of that, because we have our general, we have the 20, which we have to take the 20 mils, then we've got the LOB, which is the 15, and then we have our capital, which is 8, and then we have the 0.5, which goes to the tech center for the adult learning. And then we have the bond and interest, which is at 11. The bond and interest, we can't lower that anymore. And this KSD wouldn't let us, because you've got, the whole idea is you've got to have that levied to pay your bond and interest. And if it's not levied to pay it, then we're not meeting our bond and interest and stuff. So right now, those numbers are pretty tight. If we take away from capital, we would have to use general for any big things that would occur out of the capital, but then it's not going to give us a lot of money back into our general. Because when you're levying 8 and it's only coming out to 5.5. So now, remember last year when we did the teacher raises, we were able to put, you can put a small percentage, which we did, of our salaries for our maintenance over to that to be able to free up some money in our general. The rule of thumb on good finances, you shouldn't put more than 30%, and that's what we kept it at. Because remember, that money stays, and if you want to ever take it back over there, that's an added on into that general to take that percentage back over there. So you don't want to pile up a lot of that, of the salaries that you can take over there. So it's kind of a juggle, but ours is pretty tight. If, that's a bigger discussion, I think, down the road that, at some point we just need to talk about, do we want to raise the LOB, but it's going to move the 54 up above the 55, which I know that was a promise to the community, but it's still a discussion at some point, because that's also revenue that's on the table that may not impact the taxpayer. And there's ways to do that, and that's what I'm getting back from our bond and interest, what I'm working with them on to see, where that bond and interest, where we've sold some of those, if we can buy down the mill to be able to raise the mill. So, sorry, that was a lot on finance just then, so.
So when I'm looking at some of our past budgets, definitely before you came, and so we would put like $2 to $3 million into capital outlay, and then we increased it significantly. So tell me how that worked. Like, how did we go? I know why we did it. I was on the board, but like, how do the numbers square when you put $2 to $3 million in previous years, and how does that? What were we doing with the money? That's. Where did the 2.5 million come from that we added to capital outlay in the last couple of years? So
Prior to that, since I've been in the position, we've been going straight off of what's been levied into that. The prior years, I can't speak to on that, Jamie. I just, looking at it's confusing of why, because it doesn't some of it didn't make sense in reference to what logically, or if you had conversations with KSDE. I couldn't tell you, because we've really planned, like when Paul was up here, because Paul's stuff comes out of that too, right? And his is coming out of that, and we're still going to be where we're at. So one of the biggest things is what Corey has been doing. We've got to get that maintenance, and we are moving that up very quickly and getting everything so that we're not waiting for it to break down and then having to pay a significant amount to get that done. So, I couldn't tell you. Nor do I want to dig that far into that, because we've got it really balanced nicely now, so.
The other thing I would think of it as well is a priority list of the projects we need to do. And I don't doubt that the middle school project needs to happen at some point, but what are the other priorities, like the playgrounds at the elementary schools, or maybe doing something at the high school where our concessions are there, or maybe redoing bathrooms there as well. So I think it'd be nice to have a list of all of those projects
Sure.
with costs, and then we can prioritize them. I feel like right now, we just have this one project in front of us, and I know there's other projects that are just as relevant, but we don't know what they are. So it's
Right.
kind of hard for me to say, let's go and do this one, but I know there's other needs, but I don't know what they are, and they're not shared right here.
Sure, and we can provide that to you. I think the biggest thing what moved this one up is that word safety, is the safety of many, many things, of the track being safe with all these cracks, the field being safe with athletes on that, and then the people that are trying to get down, especially when John was having problems going down the hill, was the safety. You know, large part of that, a year ago, we started looking at when we looked at that and said, you know, we got to start thinking about this because this is now a safety. Playgrounds start to fall into that too. And so those are kind of in that. And like I had shared, Corey, we're starting that ball rolling. That one's just not as quick of a fix because of the track and field can go in a matter of 4 months because it's an isolated, you know, area where we've got several buildings to work on. So, but yes, I hear what you're saying there.
I think I always anticipated that we would see the track come up in our discussions this year because it was in the notebook that you all put together last year. So that's, I mean, I saw the cracks then, I've seen them for years, you know, when
Yeah.
I would go out there. So I always anticipated that, and this is just bigger. And so I think knowing sort of where it plays with, you know, the rest of the projects for the next 2 years, I think would make it an easier decision for sure.
So I'm going to let, oh, whoops, sorry, did you have a question? No, you're good. So I'm going to have, so on the next slide, I put in 2 options, just one, I put in kind of getting a ballpark figure, like if we just did nothing and we just renovated the track and the field and left it grass, what that would look like potentially. I put some pros and cons there, which was shared by the administrators on what that would look like. You're looking at about a 1.4 to 1.5. Once you get a track up to par, you're talking about, if you're just going to resurface a track, that can be anywhere around the 200,000. So, you know, it's kind of like our HVAC. You know, once we get that up where it's supposed to be, then the maintenance on that is dollars a day instead of hundreds of dollars when we do those repairs. So the same thing. And the resurfacing, Joe can speak further on this because he deals with the material more, but you know, when you can wait 10 years to resurface a track instead of waiting 20-some years, and now everything's just at the point to where it has to be replaced completely. So that's one of the options that could be an option to move forward, but it doesn't add in any of the other bathrooms or any of the lights or the fencing or anything like that to that area or the throwing area. And then option 2 gives more about the renovation of the track and all the additions. I'm going to have Joe share that with you because the pictures are coming up, the projects. I think you'll be really excited about it when you see the potential for that. We've talked, like I shared with you, Joe and I have worked on some other projects together, and so kind of, you know, things which he's going to share, which is on the next slide, just a simple thing is in the little parking area of putting a loop, you know, just a handle there where people can drop people off and not feel like they have to park over there, leaving that for people that may need that and stuff. So it's just simple things like that. Joe's company does a great job of that, of listening. One of the things I saw in this that I hadn't shared with Joe, but we can do is in the throwers areas, if it comes about, is you always want to put a couple of sets of bleachers over there. So that most of the time athletes will sit on those bleachers, but it's still a space for people to sit and give a place for people that, you know, may not bring chairs and stuff. But so I'm going to turn it over to Joe. And Joe, I didn't know if you wanted to introduce because we have a Kansas rep. Joe's in St. Louis, right?
Yes, Joe Janito, ATG Sports President of Sales. I also have TJ Hollis, Kansas sales representative for ATG. We've been working on this for quite a while. Thank you for having me tonight. Shout out to Adrian and Bo and Ms. Stranathan. It's nice seeing so much passion for something that we do. We build these facilities all over the Midwest and have been doing it for a very, very long time. Before I jump into exactly what you have there, just a little bit more background about ATG. We did resurface your turf field in 2021. Looks fantastic. You guys are doing a great job keeping up with it. We go back 40-plus years, nearly 45 years now, doing sports facilities. It's grown each and every year. Now we're to the point where we're doing 70, 80 projects per year. And it's exciting. I know we're getting close to summer. We do have an option currently for you this summer to have this ready for your kiddos this fall. So looking at the boards up there, I can kind of walk you through some of those items that we're looking at. We looked at a lot of options. We looked at tilting it, turning it, sliding it, moving it left or right. But keeping it in a similar template was by far the best economical value. And that's our job and our goal is to give you the most durable surface we can, least maintenance we can, at the best cost we can. And so as you can tell, we have a new turf field up there. It's got everything you need for all the markings for your sports. We have a new track. Within that track, as I mentioned, building it bulletproof. We've got curbs on the inside and outside. We've got a stable subgrade. We've got the rock and the asphalt all the way through the track surface. That when you build a track correctly, that track is set up to be a 25, 30-year track with maintenance cycle sprays every 8 to 10 years. And that's how we've proposed it so far to have a good economical system for you. We've included some, you can see we've got the pole vault, in the north side. We've got high jump on the south side, and then we've got long and triple on the southwest side. As we kept moving on this, we kept kind of dreaming and adding to it and how to make it a fully functional, usable facility, which is sometimes scary because now you're elevating cost. But I think we really did come up with a really good plan that keeps those costs to a minimum. Starting at the left side of the page here with the 50-plus space parking lot, a nice little circle drive was added for drop-offs, which will be a common use. We do have a little bit over, I want to say around 11,000 square foot of flat work that takes you to the field, a little bit of a plaza around that concession in between the parking lot and the track, and then takes you to the seating areas on both the visitor side and the home side. We've planned so far 750 seats, 500 on the home, 250 on the visitor. On the home side, we've also planned a small press box. Not something you necessarily see at a high school for a football stadium, but certainly something that keeps, it's a lockable facility, gives you a small space for doing everything you need with the PA system. If you could, let's see, real quick on this one as well. Another very important component that we all came up with together was creating, you kind of see that shadowed area. That shows the potential 6-foot perimeter fence that goes around the entire facility. I think that's an important space. Sometimes we put that up to the track. I think for your particular facility, and I think we all kind of agreed, that would be best to have a little bit off and enclose the entire facility itself. If you could flip to the next slide.
Wasn't there a bathroom too in that little concession area?
Yes, that concession up there. We build that very similar building several times a year. Not massive, but it gets the job done. It is a small concession, a little bit of storage, and then both men and women's bathrooms. This slide we can go through fast. I just want to show you some of our drainage points with the blue piping. One of the neatest part about not only building the track correct, but the turf is we're going to have a facility that drains. The turf will be dry to the touch after a hard rain, nearly moments after. So your use potential goes through the roof, and that's exciting. And then when you talk about the lights, now you've got the ability to go before school, through the night. That's going to be really great. But the blue pipes up there do show the drainage for the parking and also for the track and field. Flip to the next. I think this is a really neat idea, and we've done it a couple places. We've done parts of it. I think your space and your setup in comparison to where the high school track is, I think it's just going to be a great centralized throw facility. I think when I talk to coaches, you really have what they want, not necessarily more than they want. Could you get by with less? Potentially, you currently are. But this is a really neat facility that will last you several decades doing it the right way. We've built in the 3 shot put areas, 2 of them that could be used for competition at the same time. We've built in 2 discus areas. We've built in a javelin runway, and then we've got some centralized flat work. Really with that flat work, we've got a square footage in mind. We can kind of place it, slide it to accommodate future seating or whatever might fit the facility the best.
I'm really bad at spatial recognition.
Okay.
So this is the north side, the north side of the high school track?
Yes.
So there would be actual, like, it looks like an accessible pathway then?
That is
To
correct.
that, okay.
Yep, and then we kept some of the backgrounds on there just for that spatial, so you can kind of see where it lines up. But yes, there would be complete access to the area. You're welcome. And then before, I guess, we move on to cost and scheduling, maybe open up for some questions you might have. Okay. If you could flip ahead, it's toward the back of the next few pages, that one right there, second to last. As I mentioned with schedule, the vast majority of our work for the summer is booked. We've had this one earmarked for a while. We're hopeful that it's something that you'll consider. We've had conversations internally this week, even today, deciding that, okay, if we can get a go in a reasonable amount of time, we could start late May, early June, and then turn around the field for use towards the end of summer, button up the field and other components early August, and then have the track and all components of the project complete at the end of September, October 1. So that is still a reasonable goal to this day, and really excited about you guys potentially considering that. Did provide some breakouts within that lump sum that you can see. Maybe you'll have questions there. Okay. Well, I'm not leaving, so if you have more questions, call me back up. I think that's another testament to how good everybody did speaking about the value of what we're trying to do. So thank you so much for having us here tonight.
All right, any questions, or what would you like me to bring back to you for the next meeting? The list, it sounded like the list of what our big projects are.
You know, when I joined school board, I remember like there was a document that we had that sort of gave us sort of like the capital outlay plans for several years coming up, including not just the maintenance but also buses and textbooks. I think like getting something like that for the next couple of years.
For
could
rotation plan.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. Yeah, but the rotation plan, and just so we know where all, what all the expenses are.
Sure.
Hopefully you're not gonna have to create that from scratch. I'm sure you already
No.
have something,
All the directors had to put together a 1, a 3, and a 5-year plan, and so, now we're heading into the 3, and so we have those projects. And I think Paul had shared, he's right on score with what he's been spending, and so knowing that, we're able to plug that in on our expenditures. And Corey's doing a great job with his, even though sometimes there's the pop-ups, but those pop-ups are not as severe as what we all saw within the last 18 months. So we have those, yeah. They're going to be separate because that's what I've asked them to do them by department, so to have those discussions, so.
Well, I would echo what Jay says. I think it would just help us to visualize, not just what we're spending now, but what we still
Sure.
have to spend on other things. But, this is now maybe with the conversation we had earlier, 3 times this week now I've had discussions about building materials and cost increases. So I'm looking at 2 options. One is for about 1.4 to 1.5 million. The other one is kind of the whole package, right? 3.6 million. Is there a possibility that we could split some of this up? Perhaps start with option 1 and then slowly add in the things for option 2 to break the cost up over time? But I'm also curious about, changing tariffs and economic trade wars and I don't know how these building materials are going to hold up in that in terms of cost, and so I don't know if our
Joe's
guests want
going
to
to
speak about
guarantee
that.
those prices, right, all the way through?
Oh, you have to come to the microphone. Sorry, that way people at home can hear you. For the 3 people that are watching.
No, we do have these prices locked in. You know, one of the ways we're able to make it so economical is by packaging it together. I think even if there wasn't major economic inflation or other things that affect the economy over the next 2, 3, 4 years, I think you would see a rising cost just by breaking it up. So that's number one. And number two, yes, our pricing's locked in. The moment that we're under contract, those items are secured, and we're ready to go. I'm just going to stand over here.
Yeah, no, thank you for that information. It's just a lot of money, right? Like, you look at the track, and it's kind of an easy sell. Oh, yeah, we need to fix that, but then you get the sticker shock.
You just have to sleep on it a couple of days, right?
Yeah, this has been a really thorough
Yeah.
presentation. I do appreciate all of the input we've received tonight. It's been really thoughtful and well presented.
And I know it feels kind of like it's like brought just quickly, and so behind the scenes, which is good, we have the staff and everybody that's been working on it, you know, to make sure when we bring it, it's covered, everything's covered for you all.
I think, Jamie, you had mentioned, didn't you mention if there were any grants out there, if we were able to secure those down the road, how does that work? Like, do you just get to put that back in your capital outlay?
So what would happen with that is we can put that, you can put it in your general, and then you can reimburse your capital. So you can put back into that, but you can't reimburse the other direction. So, yes, we can do that. We can shift the cost out of there and put that in. So, and we do that sometimes with the bond. Like, sometimes things will get billed to capital that should be bond, so we have to reimburse and pull out. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. The next item is 9A, district highlights.
Okay, well, I'm always excited to share district highlights, but I'm especially excited about tonight. So, first of all, Mr. Martin, he's wearing his purple, and I presented to the Kansas State Board of Education about what it means to be designated a Purple Star District. So that was a couple of weeks ago. Mr. Martin entertained the state board with some stories as being a Navy veteran, so he was very appreciative of that, of being there and being able to present. So we joined Spring Hill, Rose Hill, and Piper School Districts for the presentation. Dale Brengard, who is the Kansas State Department of Education Director of School Finance and also veteran, was really the one that facilitated it. So it was a nice experience, and Mr. Martin was the only one that they laughed at, so it was a success. Laughed with, I mean. Yesterday, our second graders in each of our elementary schools attended the first ESU Career Day that was designed specifically for them. That was very exciting. ESU hopes to make that an annual event. ESU leaders T.K. Criley, Kelly Hine, Kayla Maxfield, Hannah Hurld, Dorothy Stevenson, and Mary Shively were all part of that to make it the event very special for our students and staff. So it was very nice. This morning, I was out at the Emporia High School student leader breakfast, and it was well attended by students. Also noticed that we had some retired coaches that are back working as Rule 10, and they had a special speaker. And so Bo was able to introduce Dale Morrow. He did a fabulous job. He talked about what it was like to be a student at the high school as well as an athlete, and then going into college and being successful. Repeatedly gave credit to the coaches in his life and encouraging him and keeping him grounded, and also his parents for really always looking forward and not just focusing on athletics, but what is he going to do professionally. So he talked about his professional life, the important part of coming back to Emporia and giving back to Emporia. He was amazing. One of the students asked about how did he stay how did he say balanced? And he had talked about being scheduled and making sure that you do all of the hard work in the morning, all the hard things that are in your schedule, do it in the morning, and then the others will come easily. So he just did a fabulous, fabulous job. Also, Mr. Pavlik talked about him as an art student and how great it is to see him giving back to the community as an artist as well. So that was really, really cool. Okay. The thing that I'm most excited about is that I got a very special communication yesterday that I took to Judy, and then we were very excited, and we've kept it very quiet. We are officially a Capturing Kids' Hearts School District National Showcase! Yeah! So excited! So, Judy and I called Janet Kingsley yesterday to share an excitement, and Janet said that she was incredibly impressed that our district was able to accomplish this feat in only 2 years of committing to CKH district-wide. And so, this accomplishment is a direct result of our district and school administrators' commitment, leadership, role modeling, our staff members, students, parents. So excited. So, we could not be a district showcase without having the majority of our schools being, sorry. No. The majority of our schools being national showcase schools, but that is quiet, and we are going to start sharing that next week. So you'll find out which schools got the national showcase schools, but the majority of our schools got it. So just great, great work for our administrators, teachers, students, parents. We talk about it. We were at JDAC, and we were hearing about it was brought up that, well, maybe we should do CKH because the kids talk about it at home and talk about the social contract. Maybe we need to use the social contract as our norm. So it's growing, and thank you all for approving, that commitment, to CKH. So we're so excited. So we will continue to celebrate, and please stay tuned. We're very proud and excited.
And can I just add that this is amazing and congratulations, but it also comes from leadership. So thank you, Dr. Harder.
Did you have any other highlights? Okay. No?
That's it.
Okay.
I want to end on that one.
Okay, yeah. So that brings us to item 10A, executive session.
I move that we enter executive session for 10 minutes to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel in order to protect the privacy interest of the individuals to be discussed, and to return to this room at 8:05 p.m. Superintendent Dr. Allison Harder and Director of Human Resources Jared Griffin are invited to join the session. No action is anticipated.
Would you be willing to amend that to 12 minutes?
So amended.
8:07.
8:07 then.
Second.
Second.
Motion passes 6-0.
I motion to return to regular session.
Second.
Thank you. We have to vote. Casey, vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Item 10C, I move we go into executive session for 10 minutes to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel in order to protect the privacy interest of the individual to be discussed, and return to this room at 8:18 PM. Action is anticipated.
Motion passes 6-0.
I motion to return to regular session.
Second?
Let's do a hand vote on this one. Motion passes 6-0.
I move to go into executive session for 10 minutes to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel in order to protect the privacy interests of the individuals to be discussed, and return to this room at 8:29 PM. Action is anticipated.
Motion passes 6-0.
I motion to return to regular session.
Second.
Motion passes 6-0.
Item 10G is our action.
I will make a motion to approve the transition contract of employment for Dr. David McGehee as submitted.
Second.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, thank you. Item 11A is future board calendar dates. We have a busy spring coming up. Next week, Wednesday, April 30th at 11 a.m., the board will be having a tour at Emporia High School. And then also that evening, April 30th at 5 p.m., we will be having staff recognition evening at White Auditorium. Monday, May 5th at 3 p.m. is the retirement reception at the Boyer Building. Wednesday, May 14th at 6 p.m. is our regular board meeting for the month of May here at Mary Herbert Education Center. Sunday, May 18th at 3 p.m. is the high school graduation at White Auditorium. And then our June meeting, June 11th at 6 p.m. here at Mary Herbert Education Center. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion passes 6-0.